Well, hi. Good to see you again. I have another story for you. And of course, this is a true story, happened to me. This one happened when I was about, I suppose I was about 10 or 11. And I'm not wearing a hat right now because well, you'll find out as the story goes on. It's a true story, happened to me. Uh, now, like I said, I was about 10 when this happened, I think. And it was after school one early, after school before supper. My mom was in the kitchen, getting supper ready uh, for my dad, and so my mom was making supper and was in the kitchen. My dad was, I think, maybe down in the basement doing something, and my two brothers, I don't know where they were, but I was home and I was just playing by myself in the living room. I had a balloon, a green balloon. Now, this is, 60 years ago, probably when this happened, but I remember it very clearly. It was a big green balloon. And I was just bouncing this balloon around, hitting it, and it'd come down. I'd hit it some more, and I'd kind of chase after it, and hit it and go like that. And I hit it, and it started to come down, and I chased after it, and I tripped. And as I was headed towards the ground with my head, um, I hit the edge of the wall. It's the corner of the wall. It's where, um, you know, let's say let's say this is the wall, and I hit right on a corner, like right here, right on an edge where where two parts of the wall come together. There's an edge. It's not a dangerous place, but it was for me at that time because I chasing the balloon, tripped, fell, and as I headed towards the ground, my head went right for that edge of the wall, that corner, like right there. And I hit it with my head. Now, I didn't get knocked out. I did not have a concussion. All that happened was I sliced, cut open my skin on top of my head. No, I didn't knock any brains out. Some folks might think perhaps I did, but no, I just cut the skin. And of course, you go, oh, you're kind of screaming and crying, oh, no. And I put my hand up and I brought my hand down and it was bloody. It had blood on it. And then I really screamed. And my mom went, wow. And so my dad heard all this commotion and he came up from the basement. And I'm just sitting there, just kind of like stunned, just, I got blood coming out of the top of my head and it's really coming out. So my mom ran and got a big towel and she put it on top of my head and then I just walked around with a towel. I mean, I didn't walk around much, but had a towel on top of my head. My dad says, okay, get in the car. We're going to take you up to the doctors, up to the clinic. So I'm sitting in the back seat. My mom's kind of there with me, and my dad's driving, and we drive up. Took maybe 10 minutes. We got to the clinic, and my dad parks the car and runs up to the door, but it's locked. The clinic is closed. It's not open. It's too late. It's closed. So as my dad was standing there, this young man came up. I think maybe he was a college student. And he said, hey, do you need some help? What's going on? My dad said, well, my son cut open his head. We need to go see the doctor and he's not open. He says, probably just take him to the hospital, to the emergency room. They can help you out. So my dad said, yeah, that's a good idea. So we got in the car my dad got back in the car and drove off to the hospital, went to the emergency room. And so they checked me into the hospital. Well, actually checked me into the emergency room. And, I'm still hanging on to this. And they say, okay, lift it up. Okay, all right. Yeah, we need to get a doctor in here. You probably going to need some stitches, close up that wound. So I'm just sitting there, what are you going to do? Hanging on to this towel on top of my head that's cut open. And so they call the doctor, and a few minutes later, the doctor arrives. I know who he is. He's our family doctor. And he says, okay, wheel him over here, So I think I just sat up. I think they just had me walk over there, and I sat down in a chair. And he told the nurse that was with him, he said, okay, cut his hair, cut it right there as best you can where the wound is. So she cut it there with a razor or something. And he said, well, okay, we need to put in some stitches. As I look at it, we're going to clean it up. He says, we're going to clean it up, put in some stitches, and you'll be okay. So he did that. And he kind of washed it off or cleaned it off and disinfected it with some antibiotics so it wouldn't have any germs on it. And then he took a needle and a thread, and I could see him. He just took a needle and a thread. And the nurse says, well, do you want to numb that? Do you want to give him a shot? Should we numb that? And he says, no, I think it's probably pretty numb, really, he says. So they didn't give me any kind of a shot to numb the pain. And he just went ahead and made 4 stitches. And, he'd make a stitch, and then he'd take his scissors and cut the thread, and then he'd put the needle in and make another stitch, and he did 4 stitches. Now, when he got down to the one closest to my forehead, I could feel that one. I could feel the thread being pulled through my skin on top of my head and my scalp. And he clipped it off, and he says, okay, I think you'll be okay. And he takes a Band-Aid, takes a big Band-Aid and puts it on top of my head. And he says, yeah, I think you'll be fine. You can go to school tomorrow. And I said, really? He says, yeah, you'll be okay. So we went home, got back in the car and went home. And I think my brothers came home. They'd been somewhere. And they said, well, what happened? What's this all about? So I heard the story. And so went to bed, got up in the morning. I thought, I'm not going to school. They cut off my hair here. And there's a big kind of bloody bandage on top of my head. And my mom and dad said, no, you're okay. You can go to school. So I did. And of course, I had to explain to everybody what happened because, most kids don't come to school with a big Band-Aid on the top of their head like that. But anyway, it did heal up just fine. Went back, the doctor took the Band-Aid off and took out the stitches a few days later, and it was all healed up. And there's a scar there. I don't know if you can see it. I kind of doubt you can see it now. That's 60 years ago. But I had a scar, and I have a scar on top of my head. But I often wear hats, so you can't see it anyway. But that's a true story. And so that one I call chasing the balloon. So if you ever go chasing a balloon, be careful. So snip, snap, snout, this tale is all told out. See you later.